Hey, welcome back to another episode of mixelpix Transformers Time Warp. I'm Mike, and today we have a special episode of an interview with Mike Lorber, hidden gem of the TF fandom, perhaps a veritable box of surprises. So today we're unboxing Mike Lorber and what he does and how he loves the Transformers world. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, nice to be here.
I'm here in California in the U.S., and you're across the border up north, and our
That's
love
right.
of Transformers brought us together. So, yes, please.
Land of the antlered moose and tree sap that we like to call maple syrup. So,
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, what it is that you enjoy about the fandom?
a long time ago, I promised my wife I would keep it to one line of collecting because I used to collect, original G1s, right? And I told her, okay, fine. You know what? I'll keep it to Masterpiece. And now I have over 100 Masterpiece scaled figures. So not just Takara Tommy, but FansToys and X-Transbots. And yeah, I don't think we both knew what we were getting into. So that's okay by me. So
Are you just a toy collector, or are you a moviegoer? How do you ingest Transformers?
oh boy. I mean, I've been in it since the Marvel comic days.
Are those at the same time as the original G1 cartoon, or do those predate the cartoon a little bit?
No, around the same time that the cartoon was out. So 1984, I would have been 12.
Hey, I'm with you. I
So-
was an 80s kid too, believe it or not. I was, 84. I was 8.
There you go.
A little bit your junior.
My exposure was with the comics first. I used to live in a small little town in St. Andrews in New Brunswick, which was about a half an hour from the main border. And there was a grocery store that I used to go to in town, and they sold, obviously, comic books. And I started collecting the comics at around, actually, believe it or not, at issue 24. That was the issue that Optimus Prime died. Actually, this was around the time that the movie came out. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the movie, but I had all the comic issues from Marvel. That was my first exposure to the movie, that I read it through the comic books. And also, if you might remember, they came out with the little digests. They were about the size of like the Archie comic digests. So I got exposed to the earlier episodes through that until I actually found them. So my mom and dad at the time, they didn't have cable. So I had to pick up the transmission on our antenna. Yet again, I'm dating myself. And could barely pick up the transmission from Bangor, Maine.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was just barely catching season 3. Yeah, so that was my first exposure. It kind of also started earlier on because I'm artsy fartsy and I've always been a doodler ever since I was a kid. And in the town next to us, that was bordering Calais, Maine, there was a place where they would help, the youth, like find a job and stuff like that. And I'd made actually a couple of posters, one of the Autobots and one of the Decepticons, and they actually hung up my art there, which I thought was pretty cool, especially growing up during the 80s. I actually wanted to work for Marvel because, the House of Ideas and all that. So that was pretty much my first exposure as a collector. Obviously you get a few of the figures. I really wanted Soundwave, but no, I didn't get Soundwave, but I ended up getting my first combiner, which was Defensor. So yeah, he's actually got a little soft spot for me there,
Yeah.
And when everything ended, with issue 80 of the comics. And then it went into Generation 2. It was like, that was it, right? And then Beast Wars came out in the 90s. And obviously I'm in my 20s at this time, but there's still that little nerd part of me that was like, well, what's this all about? And I thought, no, there's no way this is going to fly. Like, what's the whole point of robots in disguise if they're animals, right? But the one thing that really grabbed me is the story. So I always kind of touched up on it now and again.
So it sounds like Marvel Comics art and that poster experience at the youth center was really formative for you. How did that play into your fandom later on?
Like I said, I've always been a doodler, and my dad, who is from Austria, being old school and whatnot, he was like, that's not a trade, like only 1 in a million get in, and it's not a respectable trade to get in. So those dreams were dashed. So it didn't draw for quite a while. And but I still had that drive to want to do something, and drawing, art, stuff like that.
He didn't end your passion for art. It just he kind of redirected your passion.
I found another way around it, right? Basically. So, after years, my mom suggested, well, why don't you become an architect? And I'm like, well, what's that? It's like, well, it's basically drawing buildings, right? And I'm like, yeah, no. So then I found out about graphic design. And so my dad was like, well, what do they do? And I'm like, well, okay, let's put it this way. You see like soup cans in the grocery store, or billboards, or signs for shops, or packaging, or anything like that. It's like, yeah, well, a graphic designer did that. It's like, so you could be doing a whole bunch of stuff and it's actually a trade. I'm like, yeah. It's like, oh, okay, fine. I'm good with that. Right. Yeah. So I got to do what I do through a little bit of manipulation. So, and, because my mom always said, if you can make your hobby your job, then at least you go to work happy. So, yeah, why not? So I went to college, became a graphic designer. That's how I got around it.
You're a smart guy. Their parents are always just, trying to look out for us, but, you hit them where it counted, and showed them how you could make a living out of it. And that's what you're doing now, right? I mean, you have your own freelance graphics company.
Yeah. I like the freedom. I like the unpredictability of what comes through the door, so to speak. Every job is different because every client's different. And I try to bring their ideas to paper, as it were. So there's a lot of research that you have to do when dealing with clients and whatnot. You have to kind of coach them through it, through like color guides and, why this color will work and that color won't. And yeah, it's never a dull moment.
So that being said, do you take commissions from the fandom?
Yeah, I have every once in a while. Somebody will come along and say, you know what, I really didn't watch season 3. I hate Rodimus. So can you do one of season 1 and 2? And I'm like, even before I did the scale charts, I did a reproduction of the Dreamwave 20th anniversary lithograph poster, the one that was done with Don Figura, or however you pronounce his last name. I know I'm butchering it right now. The one where it has basically every single Transformer on there. I can't find one to this day, so I figured, well, okay, I got an extremely high resolution copy of the image itself. I'm going to reproduce, one just that looks exactly the same, and it looks exactly the same. So
wow.
Yeah. So you know what? If I can't find it, or if it's out of print or something like that, I'll find the material. I'll make it happen. If somebody's got a commission, I'll take a commission.
Where can people reach you?
I am all over Facebook. I got several groups because I like to categorize things. I started Ratchet's Garage. The reason why I started that is if you're looking for parts, well, you go to Garage and you find a part. So you got Ratchet's Garage. You can also find me at Transformers Masterpiece Addicts, where it's all about third party and Masterpiece. There's the Maintenance Bay if you need help fixing your figure or just looking to constantly maintain it. There's the Transformers Passports, where if you're looking for instructions or boxes or any other extra little material that is not a figure, you can go there. Japanese Transformers, which is self-explanatory, or the Beast Wars Buy, Sell, Trade Worldwide group, also on Facebook. Or you can find me at Twitter under my name, Mike Lorber.
Awesome. Are you also on TFW2005.com?
Yeah, you can find me on TFW 2005 under Grifter Prime.
So the way that we got in touch was through Facebook at random, just because we were fellow Transformers fans.
Yeah.
And you happened to take an interest in the group page that I started, which has all of 5 members right now. So I'm indebted to you for actually being a part of that group page.
I try.
But then I got to see the fact that you did scale charts of the Transformers. And
Yes.
Previously, I was only aware of the one that was on TFW2005.com by Tekering and Namen. I think Tekering did the scale chart and Namen did the colors. So I've been using that in my reviews to judge whether or not the toys are actually in scale. And then I came across your post saying, hey, I've got all sorts of scales. So what got you into the scale charts? And if you don't mind me delving a little deeper, once you tell us about the scale charts, I'd like to ask you how you can justify saying that you know that these are the right scales.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think it wasn't until 2001. And I had nothing to do at home. So I'm looking online and I came across TFW 2005. And it's like, wow, there's like a whole bunch of people that still remember this cartoon. And I got into the whole of G1. From there on in, I discovered that there was car robots in Japan, which is Robots in Disguise back in 2001. And then it got me all into the Japanese series of Headmasters, and then Master Force and Victory, and then Zone and Battlestars and Beast Wars. And then I found out there was Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo, which we'd never seen in North America. And I'm like, God, I've never seen this. So it went into doing alternators, and then Energon and Armada and Galaxy Force. Well, Galaxy Force in Japan, which would be Cybertron here. And around 2002, when I was starting out as a graphic designer, I had an idea. This is kind of when card games were the big thing. We had like Magic the Gathering and what was it? Star Wars, the collectible card game, and obviously, Pokemon and, and a bunch of other card games that, were super popular, back in the 90s, and still were popular in the early 2000s. And most of these were being put out by Wizards of the Coast. And so I thought, well, this would be kind of cool if Transformers had a card game. And video games really hadn't, come out for Transformers or anything like that. So I made a couple of templates and came out with instructions. It kind of mirrored the Wildstorms card game from Image, that Jim Lee's side of things with Wildstorm Studios or Productions. So it was sort of kind of loosely modeled off of that because, I was a big fan of Jim Lee. And I started looking up the old tech specs from the old toys, and started making a collectible card game. And I'm like, you know what? Wow, if Hasbro could put this out as a card game, this would be awesome. So I did a little bit of digging, and I got the phone number from Hasbro, because I actually called them because I had a broken figure, and I actually asked for the phone number now that I'm talking about it. And they gave it to me. And anyway, I got in contact with Josh Izzo, who was in sales in Hasbro. And so I pitched the idea to him. And he gave me his email. And we started conversing by email and a few phone calls. So he said, okay, well, put the game together, make up a set, and send it to me. And I'll bring it over to San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll pitch it to Wizards of the Coast. This was on the phone. So I got the address. I printed them all up, and there were like battleground cards. There were like abilities, defense and offense cards. There was like equipment cards. There was like all the cards of all the characters. And so Josh Izzo, during that time with my research, he was sending me slips of paper. So they still had some of the production art for the animation, which he had scanned, and he had sent some to me. And I'm like, well, this is like, right, cool, right? So I made up a whole deck. I sent it to him. He brought it to Wizards of the Coast. And Josh ended up getting a hold of me and was like, you know what? They really like the idea. Unfortunately, they picked a punch card idea. Believe it or not, this is like what it looked like, where you punched out all the pieces out on this card, and it formed the robot and a vehicle. And I thought, well, you know, at least I gave it a shot. And I still stay in contact with Josh Izzo. You know, so the files that he gave me of the production charts, you know, I had them as files for years and years. So enter about maybe 5 years ago, back in the early days of third party.
What are the early days of third party? Because I didn't get into it until mid 2017.
Around the time when FansToys was starting to come out with their Dinobots.
That was like 2015, 16?
Around there, yeah.
Okay.
When masterpieces were coming out and third party was starting to come out. Places like DX9 were coming out, and FansToys were just starting to come out with their version of Shockwave and Dinobots, and Generation Toys were coming out, and so was all that Toy World and whatnot. This is how it all started. I was really impressed with Generation Toys with their Constructicons, and I thought, dang, this is like really cool. And at that same time, Toy World had their version coming out. And I thought for sure that my Generation Toy Devastator was the way it should be. But a lot of people were like, no, it's not to scale. It's not to scale. You know, Devastator should be bigger like the Toy World one, right? And I'm like, well, did I really make a bad purchase? I mean, I really liked it, but I remember the files that I had that Josh gave me, right, of the production scale charts. So I looked at them, right, and it's like, well, you know what? If I really want, like, kind of a cartoon accurate, like, look to my whole masterpiece collection, well, then, okay, let me look back at these files, right? And so I discovered, well, dang, Toy World's pretty dang close, like, really close.
So Toy World was really kind of ahead of its time. They were really kind of setting a precedent for the whole masterpiece scale.
Well, they were. Yeah, totally. And so was FansToys. So I ended up getting Toy World Devastator and putting that all together. And so once I had that all set up, I'm like, well, that's right. So I started comparing the Dinobot scale with my MP10. And it's like, well, this is right. So then how am I going to pick what I want for my collection if I'm going to have everything right? Because, you know, I'm a perfectionist that way. It goes along with, you know, my graphic design work, right? You know, because you're doing something for a client, it has to be right. And on top of that, everybody was arguing online, you know, what third party figure was to scale and which one isn't. So there was like a lot of arguing back and forth, but that's what I wanted. I wanted accuracy. And on top of that, because there was division going on in the community, oh no, you're wrong, you know, this one isn't to scale, this one is. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be a good idea of just kind of unifying it in some sort of way that everybody knew what was to scale? And I thought, let's do a little bit of research. Let's have some fun with this. I knew there was like a rudimentary chart that was out there that was, I believe, on TFW 2005 but it didn't have everyone, right? And I thought, well, that's kind of a bummer because, what about the characters that aren't on there that are out there or starting to come out? What about them, right? So that's what really inspired me to do a whole chart. Because if anything, I'm a completist, like every other collector out there. So I started going back using some of the Sunbow chart out there and dusting off all those scale charts to see if, that was correct. And I started going through the episodes, through every episodes. So at this point, it was about to get really dicey, trying to figure out, okay, who's correct and who wasn't, right? Because back in the day, these studios were on a very tight schedule. From getting the script from like day one to actually producing a whole entire episode, animated and everything, in like 3 months, which is unheard of nowadays. And that's why there's a bunch of animation errors in the cartoons, right? Certain studios had very rigid standards. And that's why I had to research, okay, who did the most episodes? Toei, they produced 68 episodes. And ACOM did about 20 episodes of in G1, right? Out of those episodes, who was the most consistent? So you could kind of tell, okay, that they were keeping to a chart of some sort, which is, some of the charts that I had, which was great. It was super, which made things a lot easier for me. So I started everything. And the original poster came out black and white. And I had every character on there. And everybody was like, whoa, this is like fantastic. It's like, all right, this should be roughly about 95% correct. I did a lot of research going into it. A lot of people were saying, well, this one can't be that tall or this short or whatever. It's like, I got this. So I show them the chart that I had from Sunbow. Yeah, I know there were some animation errors and whatnot, but this is the gravy right here, and I got the proof to back it up.
There's no arguing with this was what the official scale is supposed to be. Pretty much.
And then on top of that, I did the Japanese series on top of that, and that was black and white too, starting out. So I had to rewatch all the episodes. I kind of skipped season 4, and I went straight into Headmasters. And I figured that the Japanese studio who ended up getting, who had done Headmasters and Master Force and Victory and whatnot.
Oh, so that wasn't Sunbow or ACOM or Toei?
Well, it was for season 4 North America. In Japan, I'm pretty sure it was Toei Animation.
Yeah, because the style in the Japanese show is very tight and very consistent, it seems.
It is. So I kind of figured, all right, they have the production charts. They know what they're doing. So I had to go through all those episodes as well. And from there, you have to find certain angles, certain shots to see, how high certain characters are. And boy, there's a lot of pausing and resizing on Photoshop and all that. So I made it through the whole thing.
So the scale comparison that you had to make for the Japanese show was not based on charts that they had. It was based on the fact that you knew they were using the same charts from G1, and then you extrapolated that to your comparisons of the on-screen appearances. Is that right?
With the charts that I had, they had a few Headmaster characters in season 4. Chrome Dome and Highbrow and whatnot, and they had it scaled with Rodimus. And, well, if I knew what Rodimus's size was compared to Optimus, I can follow the breadcrumbs from there. And so that really helped.
And because they were fairly consistent in their representation on screen of those characters, that probably made your job a little bit easier instead of having to judge between, well, the scale's a little bit different in this episode, and they're taller than this person in this other episode, but they're shorter in another one.
Yeah, totally. The real challenge came when I had Battlestars, because Battlestars, first of all, there was only one episode of Zone, so I had to be really careful there. And then after that, it went straight into Mega, into Battlestars, where you had Star Convoy, and then Galvatron is rebuilt into Super Megatron, then Ultra Megatron, and you had a few other characters along with that. So you kind of had to extrapolate with, Optimus Prime is reborn yet again into Star Convoy. And okay, well, if this character is like so big, because they show a layout of Prime dead, and you have characters like standing beside him, it's like, okay, well, if he's this size and Prime's this size, then he should be yada yada yada. So that was a little bit of a headache. And those went on pretty well, selling a few of those, and it really was an eye opener for some people. So a few years, kind of actually during the time I was making the black and white scale charts, there was a interesting blog that Cybertron.com posted, the Disciples of Boltax. And it always had information on there, little interesting charts on how some of them transformed, or settings of certain locations from the show and whatnot that this particular person, Jim Sorenson, always blogged about. And all that production stuff really always interested me, because I want to know the ideas kind of like behind the whole story, right? So as the second black and white chart came out, the Japanese series came out, somebody said this would be awesome in color. And everybody was like, yeah, this would look so super awesome if this was color. I'm like, no. So yeah, I sat on it for a year, and I'm like, it was really itching on me. And I was researching the books that came out, the ARC books from Jim Sorenson.
You're connected to the Jim Sorenson. That's really awesome.
If you're gonna do your research, you might as well go in all the way, right?
Around what year is this at this point?
This is I think about maybe 3 years ago. So I started doing them in color. I was doing a little bit more digging, a little bit more research, and I approached Jim, and I asked him about the ARC books, where he had happened to get his source material from.
I picked both of those up not too long ago in 2020.
Yeah. Oh, they're fascinating books. They're awesome books. I looked him up on Facebook, and he had done these books and the Transformers Animated Almanac. And so I believe I hit him up. I can't exactly remember how the conversation went, but I asked him, hey, I really like your books, the ARC and the ARC 2.
Oh yeah, so my mind is just blown that you just walk up to Jim Sorenson and just start getting information from him. That's just amazing.
I was taking a chance, and I thought, a guy like him, I mean, he's done books. He's probably not going to respond, but I'll give it a shot, right? Because then at least you can say you tried, right? If you don't try, well, then you don't know what might have been.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, you know what? I really like your books. Can you let me know how I can come across them? I'm having a really hard time trying to find them. And, how did you come up with all this information, all the production art and stuff like that? So we started talking. He started telling me how some of this information he got from people in Japan. I think he said that he went to the production studio that did Master Force and Victory and stuff like that, and he was allowed to have pictures, or I believe copies at least, of some of the stuff. Anyway, I got some information. I told him what I was doing with my research and whatnot, trying to make these scale charts, and I plan to do it in color. So he was a big help. He's like, oh yeah, I got some of that information. I'm like, can I see some of it? And I'm thinking that, he's going to say no, no, this is my work. Right. But no, he was actually quite helpful. He sent me a few scans of Master Force, and I think maybe one or two from Victory. But I believe he said that he wasn't allowed to take any pictures of the Victory scale chart for some reason. if memory serves.
I'm very excited by that information because I really enjoy the Japanese series. So to know that it's got that level of authenticity in it is really cool.
Totally. And so, I mean, I was very thankful to him. And so it allowed me to refine it a lot more. And so I showed him what I had done and some of the charts that I had gotten. And he liked it. He liked, that I was doing all this research, and it was actually helping him a lot because I told him where I got my source material. So yeah, we just got to talking after that, and turned into a good collaboration of information changing and whatnot. Later on, I'd come across this one guy on Twitter. I noticed that he was putting out a few books in Japan on some production art and whatnot that he had come across with references material and stuff like that. And sure enough, it was kind of like finding the Holy Grail, because he actually had the Victory production scale chart. So I emailed him. I'm like, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm going through all this research. Can I get samples of your work, or can I buy your book and get it sent to me? And he's like, well, if you're doing that, here. And he just gives them to me. I'm like, really? How much do I owe you? He's like, don't worry about it. If you're a fan and if you're doing this kind of work, here you go. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. So I could really get it like super, super accurate, like pretty much like 100% accurate.
That's amazing. Like, I mean, I know people in the fandom have some differences of opinions, and, not everybody always plays nice, but that's one of the things that is amazing is like just the love of Transformers just really brings people together. And actually, like that brings out the good in people, and you can see how sharing people can be.
Yeah, totally. So with the information that he had and the information that I had, again, it's an exchange of information. There was some stuff he didn't have that I had, and vice versa. So it worked out. And it was the same with Jim too. With the stuff that he posted on his blog, like I loved it. And so I gave him what I had. I didn't know what he had, and he was grateful for that too. So the next thing was, well, okay, I did G1 all in color with all the images that you can find on Google Images and whatnot. So out came the G1.
I'm seeing here on Facebook on one of your posts where you posted up your current scale charts, right? You've got G1, you've got the Transformers Bumblebee scale chart, you've got the Japanese scale series, Beast Wars, Robots in Disguise. Is that the one? Yeah. What was that one called in Japan?
Car Robots.
Car Robots, okay.
Yeah.
Unicron Trilogy.
Oh boy.
Animated.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And
the Aligned Universe. So yeah, with the Japanese series, all those characters had never been colored. You can easily Google image search any G1 character from season 1, 2, 3, but you can't find them done for the Japanese series. So I had to color each and every character on that Japanese chart and source out all their colors through the anime and stuff like that. Oh my God, that took so long.
I can only imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, the natural progress was, it's like, well, okay, that sold well and everything. So, well, the natural course was to go on to Beast Wars. Beast Wars is a nightmare for me to scale because there's a lot of variations on what people think how big they are as opposed to actually what real size they are. What ended up happening is in North America, obviously it was done by Mainframe, and Hasbro had, I believe, one set of, like how big they were and whatnot. And then when it was shipped over to Japan, when the series started there, unfortunately, Mainframe never really gave them a script as to who the characters really were and whatnot. And in Japan, Optimus Primal is called Convoy. For the longest time, everybody thought he was like the original Optimus Prime, just reformatted into a monkey or something like that. But it was explained later on, I believe, like in season 3 in Japan, that he was a descendant of Convoy. So, there was a little bit of a mix up there. Anyway, with Beast Wars, generally when you're dealing with CGI, you have a straight model. And really, those models really don't change. It's a model. That's the way it is. You move it around in its environment. Great.
Yeah, it's all digital. It's all math. It's no interpretation.
That's right. If I was going to do a whole Beast Wars chart, there was a Beast Wars 2 movie that came out, which actually had Optimus Primal and Lio Convoy team up, essentially. There was my first reference there, okay, as to the scale between those two, between the height of Lio Convoy and Optimus Primal. So that worked out great. There's a starting point right there. You kind of have to work backwards with the Beast Wars chart, because with Big Convoy, the one that transforms into a mammoth, I found out in a later episode of Beast Wars Neo where the two meet up inside some sort of wormhole of some sort. So I found out the height between that. And then you have to find out the height between Beast Wars, Optimus Primal, Megatron, and all those characters, and work backwards again from there, because in the final episode of season 2, when you see Transmetal Megatron go into the Ark and he passes by Optimus Prime, right? And he's passing by his lower arm. And I'm like, I got a reference right there. You start with that. That's what I had to start off with. That's why on the Beast Wars chart, why Optimus is so big and all the Beast Wars characters are so small, because they're actually small. They're animal sized.
That just blows my mind that this whole series of characters are so much smaller, like human size. Actually, a lot of them looks like.
Well, essentially, yeah, because they do include the cavemen in there, you know. At this point, I completed the whole thing. That caused a lot of controversy. Oh my God, no, it can't be that big or this big or whatever. You know, you got it all wrong. You screwed it up. It's like, look, again, here's the research. By this metric, this is how big they are. As Transmetal Megatron passes by Optimus, you get a size reference right there. It's perfect. The episodes don't lie, really. After that, everything else falls into place. You have to pay attention to, you know, perspective in certain shots. It becomes easier going by. When I was talking with Jim Sorenson about it, unfortunately, he didn't have any source material for the Japanese Beast Wars shows, but we started talking a little bit, and he kind of came up with the hypothesis before I kind of clued into it that Transformers were becoming more energon efficient, and that's why they became so small. In Victory and in Zone also, you introduced the Micromasters, and so we kind of hypothesized that after a while gone were, you know, the huge lumbering, fantastically huge Transformers, and it started going towards a Micromaster scale, which ended up being later on the Maximals and the Predacons. It seemed to make sense, the hypothesis between Jim and I when we were talking about it, only to find out that he wrote some stories actually about it later on. So
it's a great theory that's backed up by some really good observations by you and he. I mean, you've put so much research into all of these scales. It's just mind-boggling.
And also, I was posting these on TFW 2005. I wanted to start selling these because, well, 24 by 36 inches, that's a big poster. And I wanted a little bit of cohesion within the fandom. Like, you know, hey, let this help you build a proper collection, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Keith messages me, and then Buddy from FansToys, he wanted to buy one.
You got attention from FansToys.
Yeah, I can even show you the reply.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I sold one to him. I'm like, this is pretty surreal. All right, awesome. Fine, you can have one. And then as it turned out, Toy World wanted one. And of course, with the little infighting that was going on between Toy World and Zeta got one. And FansHobby, that put out Super Genrai and Overlord and whatnot, they wanted one too.
That's a huge amount of research. You just saved them.
Yeah, I didn't really intend it that way. I'm glad it went that way. And later on, they also bought the Unicron Trilogy one, because now they're putting out their version of Armada Prime.
So you directly actually may be responsible for the catalog of characters that people have started to put out because there's a resource or resources of these scale charts that put all the characters together. So there's a roster they can basically go down and say, yeah, let's do that one. Yeah, let's do that one. And we know the relative size.
Basically, what I inadvertently started was a scale war, I guess, between third-party companies. And it's not like I'm bragging here, but, you know, you really don't hear a lot really anymore on Facebook of, you know, is this the scale? Is that the scale? You don't really hear it anymore.
That was the conversation I came into when I was in mid 2017. Actually, end of 2017 was when I really kicked off my collection. And I was hearing some of that at that time. But you're right. Over the past couple of years, it's really died down. It's not even an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it had very odd side effects. I'm not complaining because it just basically made my collection a lot more refined, you know, and I suppose everybody else's. So, I mean, if it wasn't help from Jim Sorenson and my contact over in Japan, then, you know, I wouldn't have refined it as much as I have now.
Wait, so you go from being a kid in the 80s who's a fan who only has access to it by the comic books to watching part of the series and not seeing the rest of the series until you're like in high school. And then you develop a card game that almost gets through to Wizards of the Coast through Hasbro. And then you end up actually influencing third party.
Pretty much. And also, you know, a big shout out to Jim. Also, when I did the animated chart, because he put out the animated almanac. So, you know, it was a natural progression. It's like, all right, fine. I did Car Robots and Beast Wars and the Unicron Trilogy. Well, you know, the next progression is obviously animated, you know, which is the biggest G1 homage that you could get. You know, so I ended up getting the animated almanac and talking with Jim more. And, you know, because there's like so many Easter eggs in those whole 3 seasons of characters that you really never saw on screen, like Grandus that only appeared in Battlestars, or lots of little insignificant characters like, say, Mainframe, which was an action master. Or, you know, just a slew of characters, right? And then all of a sudden they have like kind of a funny representation in animated. And I really loved animated. So I got the almanac and Jim helped me out. And he's like, you know what? In the almanac, yeah, there is a little bit of a scale chart you can use. It might not have every character on there, but he also sent me a chart of how big Omega Supreme is compared to Optimus. I'm not sure if that's actually in the almanac, the animated almanac book, but he gave me that, and I'm like, this is fantastic. And I tried to include some of the characters that, you know, didn't have a lot of screen time, and so I managed to finish that up, no problem. And then the biggest hurdle was the live action movie, the Bayverse. Oh God, how I hate the Bayverse.
Now, I would have thought that, I mean, well, not that you had access to the original production, you know, 3D models or whatnot, but I would have thought that actually would have made it easier because they were all CGI.
Yes and no. The one thing I can say about the Bayverse movies, and that's just me, and I know there are a lot of fans out there, and I'm not bashing on them whatsoever, but to me, with scaling them correctly, because Michael Bay does like a lot of action, obviously, in his movies. So there's a lot of movement. And all the characters look like, you know, nuts and bolts were dumped in a blender and just put on high puree. So for the most part, yeah, there is a lot of consistencies, but I did notice here and there that some of the characters did change in size between movies, which I thought was a little bit odd. But, you know, it's there. It's very subtle, and because there's a lot of movement in the Bay movies, you really don't notice it as much. But as that was the natural progression that those scale charts were going in, well, you know, it had to be done eventually anyway. And you find out the difference between actually the Bay movies and the Bumblebee movie. So, you know, which is its own little universe on top of that, you know, which is fun. It looks like they want to revisit, I think, the Bay movie for probably the last of the Bay movies, I guess. They want to bring out Unicron or something like that. I've been hearing maybe news here and there that they want to do that. So I'm going to have to probably revise that. So, and next, obviously, is the Aligned Universe. So you have Transformers Prime and obviously Robots in Disguise 2015.
Yeah. I saw season 1 of that, and I really like that show.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's something in between Transformers Prime and Robots in Disguise 2015, which is Transformers Go. Transformers Go Shinobi and Samurai, which is a Japanese version. It kind of happens after Prime of sorts, and kind of exclusively only in Japan.
So the only way I know of Go is because of collecting some of the characters from TFP who have a better representation as part of the Go line in Japan, in my opinion. So that's actually a show in between those two, and it's connected?
In a kind of a loose way, yeah, it's kind of connected.
But it is a separate show, not just a toy line.
No, it was a show. I believe Shinobi was, I think it's called Shinobi, was 4 episodes. I think they were released on exclusive DVDs, collector's DVDs, and Samurai was 6 episodes where some Predacons were awakened and trying to steal these some sort of discs of some sort. So I only watched it once, but I do know that they take place between Prime and Robots in Disguise. So again, it's more research.
Yeah, the Aligned Universe, from what I understand, I've only read a little bit on it, but it's kind of fallen apart, right? They had an idea for it, and then the reality set in, everybody doing all these shows, and they kind of went, well, it's a guideline. Yeah,
and apparently the games are kind of part of it, but I'm pretty much only doing the shows, really. And then thanks to my Japanese contact, I started working on car robots, Robots in Disguise. He gave me the production charts on that. And then for Armada and Energon and Cybertron, Galaxy Force, he ended up having all that source material, and it was fantastic because now I could do the Unicron Trilogy. Then later on, he came up with more source material because for the longest time, nobody knew how big the G1 individual combiner bots were. On the chart, with the research that I had done, finding out yet again, what was the most consistent episodes and whatnot, I found out that I was off by 1 to 3% on the actual chart that I made before I got those scale charts for the combiner bots from my friend in Japan.
That's not a lot of error.
1 to 3% is not bad. Actually, it was at this time also a buddy of mine saying, hey, it looks like over in Asia they're taking notice. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And I found out that somebody had liked it over in, I believe it was Hong Kong. It was posted on, what was it, Taobao or something like that. And then a group on Facebook that Dame
Chalk?
Dame Chalk. He had posted it on his Facebook in his group. I'm like, oh my God, well, this is really taking off.
Time for a hard-hitting question.
Sure.
Are you in it for the money?
I'm in it for the free figures. If I can. Like my mom always said, if you can make your hobby your job, at least you go to work happy. No, I do it because I have fun doing it. Money is just a bonus, I suppose, that you're making because, it is a job. Although a fun job. Yeah. With the posters that I do sell, some of it, I actually do tuck away, to pay for some of my collection. Yeah. So, but it was, originally supposed to just unify the fans to help them with the collection and, help them pick out the right figures that everybody wants to get. And so next thing I know, Keith from X-Transbots, I needed a part, and he emailed me back, actually. He's like, are you the one that does the scale chart? I'm like, yeah, I'm the one that does that. He's like, could I buy one off of you? Well, I'm like, yeah, sure, not a problem.
So as a fan, I just got to ask, Is Keith of XTB the same as Keith of Keith's Fantasy Club?
Yes.
They're one and the same.
One and the same.
Oh, okay. I've never known that for a fact. So that is very awesome. I like both companies. I think they both hit the right marks when they come to aesthetics. So yeah, very excited about that.
Pretty soon, there should be a reveal concerning the Deathsaurus that they want to put out. So look out for something, I believe, hopefully soon. More pictures of the Prosecutor should be coming out. The first Protectobot should be released in April, along with their first Omnibot.
I'm really looking forward to those guys.
Yeah, a lot of people are. But yeah, KFC and X-Transbots, one and the same.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Sometimes you want to reveal what you know, but obviously you gotta keep some things a mystery. So there are things that are coming out for the fans that that no other third-party company has put out yet. I will give that hint out.
That is great to hear. That's one of the complaints is that the rehashing of things.
Yeah. There are 2 certain Decepticon cars that showed up in season 3 that are in the works. Some people are wondering about the 2 Power Master planes that were advertised a while ago through KFC, I believe. The Japanese names were the brothers Buster and Hydra, which would be the Marvel names.
I'm right here on TF Wiki, and I'm still not finding it.
Darkwing and Dreadwind. Sometimes when you're constantly used to just using the Japanese names, you forget the English names.
Right.
So anyway, the 2 Power Master planes, those are in redesign. I know they did tease on a Galvatron a while ago, X-Transbots. That's in redesign because Keith wants to actually have these really, really good, perfect. So there's that. Yeah, and like I said, FansHobby, they said that after their Armada Megatron, they want to get into the Decepticon Headmaster Juniors, which is going to be awesome. So that's something to look forward to. I don't know what's really going on with FansToys because I really don't talk to them. I was quite curious because when FansHobby got the G1 and the Japanese poster, scale poster, and then a little later on when they got the Unicron Trilogy one, I was talking with them a bit, and they said, it's hanging up in our production office, the Japanese series scale chart. And I said, you know what? Your figures look awesome. And I told them, if you're really smart about this, you have to look at what everybody else is doing. And they're like, well, what do you mean? So I said, well, look at KFC. I said, they came out with Simba, which goes along with Masterpiece Star Saber. And I said, look at Make Toys and FansToys, and they're starting to come out with, a Target Master and the Headmasters. I said, you got a little sliver right there to work with that nobody else is doing. I said, do Master Force. Do Master Force. Nobody else is doing it. Do Overlord. Do the Headmaster. You got Headmaster Juniors. You got Decepticon Headmaster Juniors. You got Pretenders. You got the God Masters, the Power Masters. You got a whole bunch of characters to play with. They're like, you know what? Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I actually have the honor of talking to the person who made my dream come true about actually having the Headmaster Juniors turned into actual toys. Are you saying that you're kind of responsible for that?
Well, that's why I like FansHobby so much. They listen to their customers, their fans, and I gave them source material like the scale charts that I got from my contact in Japan and from Jim Sorenson. So kudos to them. They really listen. So it's fun. I didn't expect for things to go this way. Starting out just reading the comics and watching the cartoons and, then submitting something to Hasbro and, getting connections there and then ending up with some material. And then next thing you know, to kind of help unify a community over, refining their collections, putting out a chart that ends up getting the attention of third-party companies and then ending up talking with people like Jim Sorenson and other people around the community. It's a blast.
Yeah.
You don't ask for it, but you're glad that you're in it.
Yeah.
It's opened up avenues. A little over a year ago, Keith wrote back, and he's like, you still do those scale charts? Is it possible to get another one off of you? Because I lost the one that you gave me. So I'm like, sure, not a problem. I'll send you another one. It's more updated and more accurate. And I'll send you one, no problem. And on top of that, I said, while I got your attention, are you looking for any graphic designers? And he's like, well, show me some work that you've done. So I showed him a few samples, and he's like, well, okay, I'll give you a chance.
Sorry, I got to interject here.
Sure.
No way. No way.
Well, I thought, again, if you don't try, well, then you never find out, right? And so I sent him a few samples of what I did because, I work with clients that do, like spas, or they open up, websites, like nothing with toys whatsoever, or figures, collectible figures, or anything like that. Because to me, it's like, this is like working with Marvel. The excitement is there. It's like, I'm really hoping here. Sure, it's not a comic book, but they make figures of stuff that we collect. I mean, this is third party. This is like working with figures and stuff like that. Again, it's a long shot, but I'll give it a shot. I got nothing to lose, right? So he took a look at my work and it's like, okay, fine. We're planning on releasing Dr. Egg, which, as you know, is, the quintessence judge. And I'm like, well, yeah. So he's like, okay, do the box art for Dr. Egg. So, it's like, I have all this research material, and yet again, you go through the cartoons because now you got to research colors. This is a whole new ball game. This is like worldwide, right? So if it doesn't look right, the product suffers, the boss ain't happy. And, if you're saying, hey, I did this and it looks like crap, well, nobody's going to take it seriously. So I started, doing the research with watching all of season 3 and some of the production art that I had, and researching all the colors. I started building up a little team. My drawings were more penciled out by my oldest daughter because it was then a long time since I drew. So she helped me out a little bit with the line art. I did the initial coloring work through the Pantone colors, researching it through the episodes and whatnot. And then I ended up finding a colorist in England that I found through a friend of mine in Australia, a comic book artist, Liam Gray. And he pointed me towards Christy Swan. So she had helped me out with, fleshing out the color, so to speak, kind of giving it that little metallic-y, shiny look to it and whatnot. So that really helped me out too. I matched up the logos and the names, and Keith had me do a quote for it, and I'm like, really? He's like, yeah.
You're talking about the quotes that are in that weird script that's on the side of every X-Transbots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said, you can do it all. You can do the bio card, that comes with the figure, and the stats readout, just like what's on every box from X-Transbots, an homage to the old G1 toys. He said, yeah, you can do all that. I'm like, this is awesome. Who gets to do that kind of stuff, right? I'm a stickler for keeping things as close to the original as I can, because without all that original material, we would never have the figures that we do now. So I took the quote from the Marvel Transformer Universe books, and, you use a thesaurus and you reword it a little bit because it had to have that G1 homage. And reading the specs, the bio, also from the Marvel comic, and the cartoon on top of that, because I really love the origins of, how the Quintessons were the creators of all the Transformers on Cybertron, and how they're cruel and emotionless. The way the narrator just, gave it that bio on the cartoon, just making them sound like real douchebags, so I wanted to keep to that douchiness that they are, and that's why I wrote the bio the way that it is, because it's an homage to the cartoon, because that's how this all started with me, reading the comics and watching the cartoon and really having a love for these characters. Originally I wanted to get into robotics, but I didn't have the aptitude for, working with electricity and electronics. So I got a graphic artist instead. So yeah, all of it that I do is a big homage to the cartoon and to the comic. And with that, I did 3 more Quintessons. So besides Dr. Egg, there is a 3-pack of more Quintesson judges coming out.
No way.
Yes. And I got to name them on top of that. It's going to be Dr. Hydra, Dr. Kapalinka, and Dr. Lenurian. And I kind of took those names from Greek mythology and Hindu mythology, kind of trying to think of some really evil character names and stuff like that. So that's where I got those names from. Yeah.
Is that even known yet? Or are you giving an exclusive newscast right now that's coming out? Because
I'm giving an exclusive, I suppose you could say.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, why not, right? Because we'll have maybe, the third-party small ones. And don't get me wrong, they're cool, but they're small. And, if you're going to build up your masterpiece collection, well, then, that's the way it goes, right? Go big or go home. There is the Prosecutor that we all seen in the movie, that is also coming out too. I did the box art for that too. I'm going to be doing the box art for the Quintessons in general, and I just kind of found that out today.
Wow.
So the Prosecutor is going to be La Poulpe, which is kind of like French for the octopus. And Keith actually named that one because I live in Canada. I would have named it something different, but I'm not gonna complain whatsoever. So
that is so cool. That's only one step removed from having an actual Transformer named after you.
So you probably did catch the picture on the X-Transbots page. It will be die-cast like Dr. Egg. He's also going to have a little remote control and sounds as well. As far as I know, kind of planning this out a little bit with Keith. He will have the lines for the movie with the other 3 eggs. Hopefully they will say guilty and innocent.
Yes.
I really want that. And if you notice on the bottom of the box, I believe the re-release of their Scourge, Andras, it has the Executioner on there. So that's also planned.
I have to keep it more real here and
Sure.
not seem like a complete suck up, because I am very excited about hearing this news, because I am an X-Transbots fan. I think they've produced some cool stuff in the past and they continue to do so, but I have been vocal, and I am with a lot of other fans who have been like, come on, it's overkill. The trailer, overkill. Dr. Egg being motorized with lights for $180. I would have liked an $80 maximum Dr. Egg. Forget the diecast, forget the motors,
Yeah.
So if you could pass that kind of sentiment, maybe sometimes less is more to Keith, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, totally. And you know what? I totally get it with the fans. Myself also, I'd be happy if, I didn't have all those bells and whistles and a remote control to go along with it and stuff like that, and pay that lower price. And that would be awesome.
Sorry, I wasn't
You know?
trying to put you on the spot necessarily. I was just like, I got to be consistent and actually say, how I felt. And so you're there, and I just had to say it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, hey, somebody's got to say it. And I told Keith, you know what? I'm a fan, and I will tell him what the fans are saying out there, because I'm one of you. I want to see a figure that I want to buy, that I want to include in my collection. It is really cool to have those gimmicks. But yeah, I know, especially in this time, with COVID and stuff like that, a lot of us aren't working, and we want to make that dollar stretch as much as humanly possible, and I totally get that too.
Yeah.
As for the trailer, I didn't partake in any of that. I do look at it from a fan's point of view, like, hey, look, $200. That's a big chunk of change. It really is. However, when you're on the inside, and when you know that a trailer has gone into, a redesign a couple of times, where, there were tolerance issues, so things had to be redesigned. And, when you redesign on a CAD model, well, then you have to make a brand new mold. And those molds tend to cost, well, a few $1,000s. And especially on a CAD model, if you have to shift part of that model around, well, then something else has to give, and it can cause a cascade effect, and your whole entire model, how the whole thing transforms and whatnot. Yeah, I know a lot of people didn't ask for a base mode, and I get that. They just want their big, giant gestalt of a combiner. However, it is a great homage to the toy, which, if you ever had the toy, Silverbolt and Hotspot and Onslaught, they all had base modes. And sure, a lot of people don't want it, but there are some of those people that actually do, especially the ones that are buying the youth versions, which are the toy accurate ones.
Yeah, it's going to make some fans happy. It's going to make other fans go, whatever. And I did acknowledge that in, my review of Menasor, that there's a lot of engineering that obviously went into it. I mean, there's a lot of things that had to move in order for it to become a base, and then for it to become what looks like a fairly solid structure of Menasor, So I'm not mad at that. And I actually like the fact that they departed from the G1 accuracy of having the trailer as part of Motormaster. I never liked that as part of the toy. I thought that was a cop-out on the toy company's part. Like, hey, we're not going to give them something as big as Optimus Prime. It was like, well, that's cheesy. So I'm glad they actually gave us two parts, but I'm in the minority, I think.
Yeah, like that one reviewer says, Bobby Skullface. You know what? If you like it, you win.
Exactly, exactly, yes.
It is quite the feat. I mean, FansHobby has touched on it with their Power Master Optimus Prime, Super Generi. So, also hats off to them too.
That's the, what is that, the Power Baser?
Yeah, Power Baser.
Okay.
And when you really think about it, no other third-party company has even attempted something like that yet. Not even FansToys.
So, yeah, if you could do me a big favor and please tell Keith and crew to keep up the good work at XTB, and please ask them for an Alita 1. I mean, MP51RC is such a huge splash right now. I can't see that they wouldn't really be able to capitalize on it. I don't think, if they really put one out.
Well, they did tease a figure a couple of years ago of Alita 1. That is actually one of the box arts that I have to do, I believe, along with a certain Frankenstein type of figure.
Yes, and they put the official promo picture of that in one of the Stunticon's what's accessory booklet or the trailer booklet, one of the two.
I got to name him. He will be named Frank.
Awesome.
I don't have to explain why. I got an interesting background that I do want to play with on that one. And yes, and their rendition of Alita 1, I believe I will be doing that one.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. Plus, on top of that, I do also know what her alt mode is.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know if I want to know right now, but can you tell us?
I can. I know what the alt modes of Orion Pax and Alita 1 are. I do have the production art for that.
You're telling me that they're doing Orion Pax too?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not as far as I know. They did tease an Alita 1, so whether or not Keith is going to keep the same alt mode, he does know what she does look like in alt mode. So time will tell.
Okay. Well, I am very excited about that because Alita 1's such a huge part of the Transformers backstory in G1. And, you know, the first time we see fembots is in that episode where we find out about Alita 1 and how she had this connection with Prime. And it's like, why has she not come out until now? I mean, like, but finally.
And she will be scaled properly. Like I said, I'm a stickler for that kind of thing. So if not, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some hurt on Keith.
That's a pretty good voice.
I did want to get into radio a long time ago, you know, which did lead into wanting to do a little bit of voice acting. Did a little bit of fooling around with the Lazy Eyebrow reviewer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, having some fun with him. I think the latest one, what was it? It was Shockwave and a bunch of others. He let me do Hollywood Exec number 2, I believe it is. and Shockwave, because he is the guardian of Cybertron.
Wow, that is awesome.
Around like that. There's a little project that I want to start also. And I might as well tell you now, because this is something that I wanted to do for quite a while. About 10 years ago, I ended up with a high-definition copy of Beast Wars 2, the movie. I ended up going to the Calgary Comic-Con with the wife and the kids, and lo and behold, there happens to be Gary Chalk, Optimus Primal there. And I thought, well, this is pretty damn cool, right? You know, you get to meet somebody from a show that you really did enjoy. So yeah, super nice guy. I also got to meet Scott McNeil too. Actually, I have a few autographed pictures that I believe they both signed for me, or at least Gary Chalk did. Anyway, I asked him. I got it all on camera actually. I had a script made up because I knew he was going to be there, and I went up to him and I asked him, you know what? I have this idea to do a dub for the Beast Wars 2 movie that I want to do. And he's like, okay, well, you know, that's great. I said, could you be nice enough to read out the lines from the anime movie? And he's like, sure, not a problem. So he takes the script and he reads them out. But unfortunately, the audio wasn't good. And so I was kind of a little bit disappointed that, you know, it wasn't as great as I thought, right? So a couple of years ago, I got in contact with him actually again. And I said, you know, thank you for, you know, doing the lines. Unfortunately, I couldn't use the audio because, you know, it wasn't great being caught on camera and whatnot. And so he said, give me the lines again. I'll do the lines over for you. I'm like, okay, sure. So I sent him the lines over. He gave me his email address, and he emails me back an MP3 file. So I played it, and he did all the lines in a sound booth, professional lines for the movie. So wow. the next project that I want to do, I want to really find some really good talent out there, some really good voice actors, and do an entire English dub of the Beast Wars 2 movie with Gary Chalk reprising his role as Optimus Primal and putting this whole entire movie out. I managed to find the soundtrack for the movie from Japan. So it's a matter of just, you know, a lot of editing and trying to find a lot of talent, but it's the next big project, hopefully.
Priorities. Yes.
Priorities. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a guy by the name of Carlos Barantes. He heads up this animation studio that he runs just for fun called Prime Animations. He's doing a fan film of Transformers Prime carrying the story forward.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
Yeah, and he has a stable of voice actors that he's used, and people have really seemed to like the voice actors, from the YouTube comments. So I might need to put you in touch with him and see if maybe he could just give you some pointers on where to get more talent, or the people that he used, because maybe they could come in handy for you too.
I will totally take you up on it.
Okay, yeah, I'll put you in touch with him.
Sweet.
You are a man of many talents and a box of surprises. This has been an amazing interview. I really appreciate your time, Mike. And if you still like me once this video comes out, we can see about having you back maybe on more of a regular basis. If you want to share updates or insights to whatever's going on with you and what you know that might be coming down the pike. If you're willing to share it here, I'd be glad to have you.
That would be most awesome. If you want me on, hey, I will come on.
Awesome.
So, and share any kind of information that I got. I have no problem with that.
Awesome. There's so much information in this that was unexpected. Like you gave us a bomb here with letting us know that some of the stuff's coming off from XTB. I had one more random thought, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Touching off on something Bobby Skullface said. I think it was Bobby Skullface. I'm an industry outsider and I don't really understand the inner workings. I am fascinated by the interplay of the various companies, and Bobby Skullface has gone into how this company was probably that company, or he actually knows it was that company in the past, and all these interconnections. But one of the things that stuck out to me, I think, that he said was a lot of these people who are making these products aren't doing it necessarily because there's a lot of money in it, but because they're fans also.
Yeah.
Has that been kind of your experience with the third-party people?
I think so. I think it really, I really can't say about FansToys because I haven't had a whole lot of interaction like I have, say, with FansHobby and X-Transbots. For Keith, I think it might be a little bit of both. Not so much that he's in it for the money, but when he says, like, for example, when I'm asking him about the two Power Master planes, Buster and Hydra, because I got a list and, I want to check them off, right? I want to knock them off my list. So when I'm inquiring about that, you do get the sense when he's saying stuff like the redesign, I want them perfect before they come out, and I know that, yeah, X-Transbots, at times has a thing about, their QC issues. It happens with any figure. But for that statement, for him to say, before this comes out, I want it perfect, you get the sense that it's not about making the money, that it's more about really wanting to put a really good figure out because you enjoyed that figure somehow. Yeah. Like let's put it this way. He wouldn't make the figure if it didn't appeal to him somehow as a fan. He is a fan of car robots in disguise from back in 2001. And he was wondering how the fans would react if he put out a Megatron from that series. And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know because it hadn't been done before. But the curiosity is there. And now you see FansHobby coming out with their version of Armada Prime and their Megatron. And also on top of that, their Energon Prime. It is a bold step to take. And, you wouldn't put it out there if you weren't a fan of it in the first place. Maybe I might touch up with Keith on that idea. Maybe take a fan survey or something like that. How would you feel if we did this character? And that's what I'm talking to him more and more about, because I also take care of his Facebook page because, he's in China and, Facebook has a problem, with, China and whatnot, or whatever. So I'm managing actually the Facebook page. And I told him almost a year ago, I said, look, if you really want to make an impact with the fans out there, you have to look at what some of the other third-party companies are doing. like, for example, FansHobby. Because like I said, when I talked to them, and I told them, look, you got a little niche that you can work with, and that's Master Force. Start doing those, and you're going to attract customers. You're going to get everybody's attention. Because, like I said, Maki Toys and FansToys were doing, a little bit of Headmasters and, yada, yada, yada. When you look at FansHobby and their page, how they interact with the fans out there, you can really see that it makes a difference with their characters. Because along the way, and I've noticed this since their God Jinrai, their Power Baser came out, they were making changes based on what the fans were saying. And I relayed that to Keith. I said, really look at their page. And I said, you want the same kind of interaction with the fans that they're doing.
Yeah, and not for the sake of interaction, but for the sake of actually creating the product that the fans want. And
I said, the more that you listen to the fans, the more you're going to sell. It's a no-brainer. You listen to the fans, you give the fans what they want, and yeah, you're gonna make the money, and people are gonna take notice. And since I took over the fans page, the Facebook page, I took over the end of May. When I first announced, that we're really going to be, doing like a fan interaction, really listening to the fans. That was me, right? Because I wanted to give Keith that heads up that, look, you really interact with the fans. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to let you know what they don't want. They're going to let you know what they do want, aside from the whole trailer fiasco, so far it's worked.
I have more hope in X-Transbots than that goes past the trailer. And even I think more so now that I'm hearing this directly from you about their future releases, as long as they don't go overboard with, mechanization when they don't need it, and the price tag. That's really the issue, the price tag that goes with it,
True. I do know what the rest of the Protectobots look like. I got to name them all, which was awesome because Keith knew it was my first combiner.
That is so cool.
Totally cool. And he said, you can do the box art. Unfortunately, he kind of took that away from me. I'm a little bit disappointed about it, but I still got to name them, which was cool. So I will let you know right now, kind of confidentially, they will and they won't do the same thing that they did with the Stunticons. However, Hotspot will be a full, complete fire truck. Rest of Defensor will be separate. Like the trailer, right? That will be like a separate thing for Defensor. So I don't know how that's going to work. Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, it will have a base mode.
And like you said, it's the callback to the toy.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is. And because I did drop that to him, it's like, you know what? Fans aren't really wanting a base mode. Is Hotspot going to have a base mode? And he's like, well, no, Hotspot is going to be, his own complete character. However, the rest of the combiner will have a base mode. So I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be different because Hotspot completely transformed into a base mode. So I don't know how that's going to work. So if you do plan to get into the Protectobots, yeah, there will be a little extra to pay for the combined mode.
As long as they're upfront about that, and now that they've gone through this pain, because I think it was a pain for probably all three companies,
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of the worst combiner to, I don't know all of the combiners, intimately, but from what I've seen, it's kind of like the worst combiner for them to start with, because it basically was a design that was just a bunch of blocks that cars were put on top of.
Yeah.
So there was no integration actually really drawn into the character.
No, totally. I suppose it had to do with pretty much everybody else doing Stunticons, and I guess they wanted to compete.
Yeah, but I think that problem was endemic, right? It was just like across the board. It was like, okay, you've got the Stunticons because everybody likes the Stunticons, but you also have a G1 character design that's just not that good.
No, because it's a brick. I'm glad that they're doing Defensor. Like I said before, it was my first combiner. The only thing that is going to bug me a little bit is because I'm going totally FansToys with my combiners right now, right? I mean, and I know it's going to be 50 centimeters, the X-Transbots version, right? It will be. The scale of it, FansToys Carbots about, this big, and then the X-Transbots with their Stunticons, they're like obviously shorter. So I'll just be the kind of guy that's like, I can't wait to get this in combined mode because it's just going to stay in combined mode.
Right. Because otherwise it's just going to bug you too much.
Oh, it is. Until FansToys comes out with their own Protectobots and their Combaticons on top of that. So, oh boy. Oh man.
Yeah. So Mike, this has been a mind-boggling and amazing and explosive interview. I can't believe I lucked into meeting you. You're such a nice guy. You're a good guy on Facebook. You're a good guy here talking to me. You're so easy to be just talking to. So I really appreciate your time.
If anything, I'm a storyteller. I can't help it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for rolling with the punches and just being free with your information. Fellow fans, if you haven't tuned into the whole thing, you should really watch more of it because this gentleman has such an interesting and amazing history with Transformers. This is just like not something you can write. This is like somebody's life and it's beyond real. It's so cool. All the way to meeting up with Jim Sorenson and working with him and then bringing the fandom together around what is MP scale? What is the true scale? All backed up with research and industry insight from various official sources, even to the point that those scale charts and Mike's influence talking to people in third party has created some of the third party that we actually have. Like, it can't be overstated. I think these scale charts really are the influence that has, as Mike stated, kind of quieted the MP scale comparison war.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, actually, the way you said it, like me personally, you really don't think about it because, I just did something that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to just put that information out there. It was, originally supposed to just unify the fans to help them with the collection and, help them pick out the right figures that everybody wants to get. And
then you bumped into who you bumped into.
Well, you just kind of take that crazy leap. Sometimes you're thinking that.
That's right. You weren't passive. You took the initiative.
Because, you think that, well, they're probably not going to respond, but they end up responding. They don't mind taking the time out of their schedule, to help a fellow fan out. And that's really what it's all about. And when you run into people like that, it's great. I mean, just fantastic, funny, awesome things happen. And I guess in some sort of weird way, it kind of has helped third party out.
Yeah, for sure.
So they mostly all ended up wanting to get a scale poster because there was that consistency. X-Transbots got one, then FansToys got one, then FansHobby, and then it was Toy World and Zeta after that. FansHobby is keeping to it. FansToys has really kept to it. With the exception of the combiners of the aerial bots and Stunticons. I know they're a little bit big, but I don't care. It's fine by me.
You can't really account for the mass shifting, right?
You really honestly can't. It works in a cartoon. It might, to a certain degree, work in a live action movie. But obviously, plastic is rigid. And we haven't come that far in toy technology to really incorporate mass shifting, However, with as tall as the FansToys Stunticons are, boy, they really shrunk it down to the vehicle mode the size of a carbot. And to me, the engineering side of it, it's fascinating. I find it completely just amazing. Again, FansToys is ahead of the game. So,
Mike, thank you for everything you've done for the TF fandom, unifying us over the scale, and being a fan who just is vocal enough to talk to the people that you've gotten in touch with to influence the whole industry. So thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. Like Optimus Primal said, sometimes crazy works. And I'm a firm believer in that.
If you're interested in Mike's influential Transformer scale charts, private commissions, or have other questions, feel free to contact him at www.freelancegraphics.com with a K, by email at freelancegraph@hotmail.com, or on Facebook, Twitter, or tfw2005.com. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is Mike here on mixelpix. And until next time, happy collecting, everybody.